It is I.
So my issue is that I'm awaiting folks to confirm that, yeah, this is where we're supposed to be. And there ain't nobody else here. So it's like, okay, so give me a second. And
Oh, sure. I'm actually finishing
you're
it.
a minute early. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm finishing preparing my coffee, so we're good.
All right.
Go get that.
All right. I'm going to just call Charnice and figure out what the hell's going on.
Ernie, I was just getting to what you were saying. He sent an email, or
Yeah, is it the main ballroom?
yes.
Okay, well, we're there. Nobody else is, but that's okay. I just want to make sure I had the right
Oh,
spot.
is he in there too?
Yeah, so we're good.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll hop in there.
Yeah, whenever you, yeah, we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Morning, Ernie.
Good morning.
We need coffee for this session. Is that correct?
You know, I would encourage, Tony went to get his. I made a special cup because I had an extra 4 minutes this morning. So I'm good to go.
All right. Oh, and look at this. We both have our, let me turn this on here. We both have our dad mugs.
Oh, I didn't even, this is actually Papa, as you mature, is a name for grandfather. So there we go. You've got some time to wait. You don't, yeah.
Hey, I'm in no rush. I'm enjoying.
Yeah. Oh, you will be when they're about 13 to 15. Then it's like, okay, let's get through this.
I thought of you last night when I was playing some guitar, by the way.
I am so missing that. That would have been so. The nice part about being locked up is I've had some time to play, and I've had time to write. I haven't written songs for years, and so
awesome.
I've been kind of working on that. And I even wrote a song about last year's sailing trip with Juan and some of his friends. It's like I'm just I'm enjoying it. Good morning, Charnice. Tony's here. He went to grab his coffee and
okay, good. He's getting with the group.
Yeah,
Great.
and then I know. And then we got 7 minutes. It's like so I don't mean to pick on or call on people, but I'm seeing in the screen and there's somebody with the name Jeremy Divinity. I thought, God, what a great name. It's like that is just it's like so anyway, hello Jeremy. I love your name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank people. I'm going to remind them about the other session as well, which is the
Charter School Capital.
Yeah, we're Charter School Capital. I thought I had this here because I am wearing my Charter School Capital socks this morning.
Are you?
Yeah, I am. So I'm going to remind people that they should wear their socks and mention Charter School Capital, and then do the thank yous, tell people about 12:30, and then I'm going to introduce Tony, and he'll have the rest of the time. So I think I can do that in less than 5 minutes. So is there anything else that I should tell people? Oh, what is there something simple I can say about surveys?
Just that they're accessible throughout the whole time. It doesn't have to happen right after the session. If they want to go back in, they can check out all the surveys from the sessions that they've attended. There's a list of them.
And that's on it's not on the left-hand side though, right?
It is the main navigation. Yes, it is under surveys.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
They can access it there too.
Okay. Okay, make a note of that. Tony, we
good
are in the
morning.
right place. If Sharnice is here, it must be the right thing.
How are you?
Good, we're all good.
Good, good, good.
And I know people are excited about the event, not just about the last day for staff. It's like, but it's gone. It's because of Sharnice and Juan and all of
Linda.
Linda's team. But it has gone really well. I was so hesitant about the virtual conference, but it's gone well. People are responding well. So yeah, so I'm excited. So what I'm going to do, Tony, is I'm going to start at 8:30. I'm going to do a couple reminders, and then I'm going to introduce you. I shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. So the remaining 25 is yours. I'm not going to come back in. People can go at 9 o'clock to whatever sessions they want to go to. So feel free to,
Just so that you know, it's probably going to be more like 15 minutes. I timed it.
Oh, then people can get another cup of coffee.
Get another cup of coffee.
Okay, so, and what I'm using is the speech that you sent me. So I'm using that Rethinking Power in Education as kind of a title. So I didn't want to say that, and then you start. Well, actually, I'm talking about okay.
Hey, Ernie, real quick, can you make me a host?
Sorry.
Let's do that switch right now. So.
I didn't mean to get on first. So I go to security. I go to.
So go to my name. Find my name on the participants. If you hit participants.
Okay, participants. Yeah. Sharnice says co-host. What do I do now?
Okay, so go to more, and then it should say make host.
Make host. Perfect. You want to change the host to Sharnice? Yes.
Right. Okay, right. And I'm going to give you and Tony co-host. Do that. So Tony, you can, if you have your slides, you can go ahead and start. You can screen share and stuff. And
no slides.
No slides. Oh, okay, great.
Just me and it's and my face.
It's just keynote, and it's
I should have known.
Grand face. We're happy to have it. Yes,
the actual keynote was better because I was on location. I'm giving a version of that same one.
Oh, right. Okay.
Ernie.
Say again.
I said I'm not sure if you saw it.
No, I did, because you're on that. It was a bridge. You're talking about the geography. It's like, oh, that was really cool. So that tied a lot together. But here it's a different.
I'm reframing it, but it's still essentially the same thing. But
I didn't want you to surprise me. It's like, And I moved out of my jacket stage. I'm now like last day of conference, on the way to the beach. Everything's good. Yeah, no beach. I'm trying to. Okay, what other business do I have? So, this is a Linda Lee question. I have someone who didn't get their box. Do you remember, Sharnice, when we sent out a note that we said, hey, if you confirm the address for the mailing the box? Do you remember when that was?
A couple of different ones. The last one was Friday, I think.
Okay.
The last Friday.
I'll figure it out. I'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to connect with her. I'm not sure that we can do that. Tim. All right, so I want to make sure I've got a minute to go. All right, you see the numbers thing, and so it must be really close to 8:30. There we go. Good morning. I'm Ernie Silva, and I serve as the executive director for RASPA. And I'm just want to again welcome you this morning, and I'm really glad that you're here with us. I want to mention just a couple of housekeeping matters before we get started. I know I have my charter school capital socks on. I'm hoping that many of the rest of you do. And you'll note that there's also a presentation. This morning, we're offering you two choices. There's a charter school capital presentation that's taking place now as well. I also want to remind you of surveys. We appreciate the presenters and we appreciate all the work and time that they put in. They'd appreciate hearing back from you on what you thought. If you go to the basic Whova platform, there's a place for surveys for you to enter your feedback. And you can do that anytime. It doesn't have to be during a particular session. You can go in and reach any of the sessions that you've seen. I again want to remind you that without the sponsors that we don't do this. So make sure you take a couple minutes and visit with some of the sponsors using the Whova platform. There's a lot of ways that you can reach out and connect not only with sponsors but with presenters and with other guests and attendees as well. I also want to remind you that there is a Student Voices closing session at 12:30 today. That's going to be really, really awesome. I hear a lot from you about wanting to hear more student voices. You'll notice there were a couple sessions so far that included students, and we also the closed panel is primarily all students talking about work that's being done in Riverside County to integrate the perspectives and the needs of the community, of the police, and of students like ours. I think that's my bits and pieces. I'm now really excited to introduce Tony Simmons, who's going to be talking about rethinking power in education. Tony is one of our board members of the RASPA board. And we've had because of Tony and because of Matthew LaPlante and Julie Evans, the board, we've spent a lot of time thinking about the importance of equity in the work that we do and trying to reform the conference some to focus on equity and I think that from all of us in this community, when you think about what you're doing, it's like the personalization of learning, that's equity. And we heard from Dr. Howard yesterday that re-engaging at Promise students, that's equity. As a matter of fact, he spoke to the value of using that label of at Promise and the importance of that. So we've tried to develop this theme of deeper conversations, thanks to the board and the work that Tony's been doing. I want to. So I've known Tony for I don't know, it's been 10 or 12 years now since we first met on a panel that the charter school authorizers were putting together, and it was interesting because they had some authorizers and they had some of the cream schools, but there was only two of us that were speaking to the needs of at Promise students. The students that we work with have different needs and have a different approach that's necessary. And whatever it was 10, 12 years ago, it was hard to find folks that understood that. So it was really great to see that I had an ally on that group. And over the years, the work that Tony's done with High School for Recording Arts has really helped. They're a St. Paul school, but they've had a national impact. He's had a national impact, and I'm really excited to hear from him this morning. I want to because for those of you who don't know High School for Recording Arts, there's a book. Sam Seidel wrote a book called Hip Hop Genius that talks about the school, about the founding of the school, about the work that Tony does, about the curriculum and the pedagogy that's used. And it's just I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot about Tony way after I met him by reading the book. And if for nothing else, that you get a sense of how broad a vision that equity in education can be, how broad a vision that serving at promise students can have. I want to encourage you to take a look. So I'll shut up now, Tony. So the executive director for high school for recording arts, Tony Simmons, take it away, Tony.
Well, thank you, Ernie, my good friend. And what Ernie didn't mention to you is that we've spent many social times together too, in wine country and sailing to San Diego Bay. And as a board member, I'm just so enlightened to share working time with Ernie as well. And to the RAPSA family, I miss all of you. It's so unfortunate that we're not together. But there's a saying we have at High School for Recording Arts through all of what's going on. We say we're distanced, but not disconnected. And I feel through this conference that we have not been disconnected. However best you could feel spirit virtually, that has been the feeling that I have had. So I hope does everyone have their coffee? I mean, I don't know if you can see it. Here's my coffee. And I'm home right now, and I just want to say too that the screen you see behind me is represents a youth-led organization with many students from my school called Z Generation, and it's all about them lifting up student voice and really being strong advocates for things that are important to them. When Ernie talks about equity, that's what they're fiercely focused on. And for what I'm about to speak to you about, that includes issues around race and class. So I'm representing them. So I hope you can appreciate that, bringing their spirit into the space. I also have it up because I am home, like I said, and in addition to being responsible for my school day-to-day operations, I'm also a remote learning parent to all of the other remote learning parents. And I have an 11-year-old who, despite whatever I say to her, she will come up to me at any given point to ask me something. Honey, I'm doing this big, talk to people all over the country. Okay, but Daddy, what about? So I'm just sharing that because I know many of you are in the same situation, and it's okay, it's real, but thank you. So like Ernie said, as we were planning for the conference, I was asked to share a presentation that I had given recently as a keynote to an organization called Teacher Powered Schools. And I think what resonated with them was that, we're at a point in time in our country's history where there's a real kind of racial reckoning. We're trying to figure out, who we are as a nation. I happen to live in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and as many of you know, this has been the epicenter of racial and social protests and unrest, and I'm going to address that a little later. But as we were thinking about the conference and this focus around equity, I was asked to share those remarks, and I'm especially proud to do that. And I believe that, like I'm talking to family. It feels real good to have this conversation, and I hope it is a conversation because after you hear what I have to say, I would love to have your feedback and your remarks, and so that we could continue to better serve our young people who are usually the most marginalized and oppressed in society. So with that, I want to begin my remarks and just say first, again, good morning. My name is Tony Simmons, and it's my honor to greet you from Minneapolis, St. Paul. I am the executive director and helped to create the Teacher Powered, learner-powered, family-powered, and community-powered high school for recording arts. I say all of these spaces of power because I recently gave a keynote speech, like I mentioned, at the Teacher Power Conference, and wanted to clearly make the point that teacher power, our power as educators and leaders, comes from our connection to and inclusion with learners, families, and communities. High School for Recording Arts is a public charter school founded over 20 years ago by a young African-American man who saw a need in his community and wanted to do something about it. David T.C. Ellis used his knowledge of and connection to his community to create a school with a group of young men who showed up to his recording studio every day, ready to engage in the music business, and who, like him, had been pushed and kicked out of schools because of how they looked and showed up. Knowing that these young people were hungry for knowledge and to be heard and seen through their creative expressions, and that they had a right to an education and to be in school, he co-created the High School for Recording Arts with these young people and a great community. At High School for Recording Arts, we believe that each person comes through our doors with abilities that deserve to be recognized and honored. We believe that all of our young people, as we all, need holistic supports that allow them to reach their full potential. We believe that to properly engage with our learners and support them reaching their potential, they need access and exposure to innovative learning spaces and practices. Last, we must do all of this with a social justice lens. That means to us that we must take note of what is happening in our communities and listen to the stories of our students and their families and apply all of that to what we do on behalf of our young people. We stand on our learners, families, and community shoulders. They all preceded us. Their hard work and resilience has led to their survival, which then has allowed us to engage with them. We are who we are solely because of what they have done prior to our having this privilege to do this work. I live and work between two great upper Mississippi cities, the two great upper Mississippi cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. The mighty Mississippi roars from here south to the Gulf Delta with all its beauty, majesty, and history. That history speaks metaphorically to the very times we are in. The Mississippi was named by the indigenous people whose land I currently occupy, called the Ojibwe. They called this river Mississippi, which means great river. The Mississippi has played a major part of our country's history, from being the westernmost border of a nascent nation that was founded ostensibly on the principles of freedom and equal justice for all, to later becoming the launch point to what became known as Manifest Destiny, which led to the subjugation, slaughter, and near genocide of our Native brothers and sisters. We also know that this river brought great material wealth to this nation as a literal stream of commerce that enabled waves of cotton and tobacco to travel from the north to the merchants, from the south to the merchants of the north for further distribution and white wealth accumulation. As we know, that commerce was produced by the brutally enforced slave labor of African people. Yes, this great river carries, in the words of the famous Irish healer, Project Otuma, both celebration and lamentation. Nationalist pride for what this river has contributed to this nation's great material success, while at the exact same time being a backdrop to its original sin of racism and white supremacy. Throughout history, this river has borne witness to our struggle with this complex reality. Yet despite our struggle, this great river, the Mississippi, just keeps rolling along. In light of this complex history, we must take note of both space and power. The space that I currently occupy and have been referencing, the space we respectively and collectively occupy. For all of our spaces absolutely intersect with power. Again, Project Otuma speaks to this point when he notes how a recognition of the power and politics of place is vital. So when we think of both place and power, the questions become, where is the place we're considering? Who occupies it? Who controls it? Who is seen and not seen? And tragically, far too often, who lives freely or who is more likely to die on it at the unjust hands of some despotic force. With that, it is meaningful at this point to mention that just a few miles from the Great River and where I am currently, Brother George Floyd was senselessly murdered by a police officer. And if you allow me to digress for just a moment from my main points to give a deeply personal belief inspired by the book of Amos, which beautifully reads, "But let justice run down like a river and righteousness like a mighty stream." If that passage is truly prophetic, then through those words and with proximity to the great river, I am confident that we will ultimately see justice for good brother George Floyd. That cry for justice that began on the nondescript South Minneapolis street corner of Chicago and 38th Street has now been shouted all over the world. During the early protest hours, I witnessed many of my students, and yes, even some of my young educators and teachers, out with bullhorns, fists raised, and their hearts pounding to be seen, heard, and felt. Those protests have been largely driven by young people along streets, plazas, parks, highways, and in various communities across America. As an education leader, and you may have been asking yourself this too, I was more specifically confronted with questions about space and power from all that I was witnessing. My questions were, what do I make of this moment in time? Why are they choosing to protest at these particular places and in this or other manners? What are they actually fighting against or for? Are there raised fists shouting for more than just justice for George Floyd and against police violence? Or is there a larger cause that this moment is about? What is being validated or challenged in all of my assumptions about my work? What is the true purpose of education and the facilitation of learning? Who am I actually doing this for? And what are the real outcomes that I seek? Is it just to check the traditional boxes of success that the system tells us matter most, like test scores? Who am I doing this work with? Who is at the table with me making decisions, designing our school programs or new schools, or even a first project for a beginning independent learner? Who isn't at that table? And of this group of people in the streets who aren't my young people, but also crying out for justice, who are they? Who are these community activists, faith leaders, gang interrupters, artists, community elders, local business owners, mothers and fathers that perhaps I never took adequate time to see or acknowledge before? But there they are in the streets, fists raised, crying for justice. Imagine if just for a moment that instead of the protest being directly most specifically at the police, it was directed at our public education system. Would any of us be shocked or wonder why? When over 5 million young people, mostly Black, brown, and poor, are pushed or kicked out of school at any given time in this country, could we blame the crowd for directing their grievances at us? When primarily Black and brown and Native students are treated as suspects just for manifesting outbursts from deep trauma and mental distress, like they did with brother Daniel Prude in the streets of Rochester, New York. And instead of a school community wrapping its loving arms around that young person, they have the police summoned. Should we be surprised when instances like that happen every day in our schools and communities cause people to become outraged at our racist educational system and society? And if you're uncomfortable with me or anyone else calling our educational system or society racist, then let's stop instituting and maintaining racist policies that lead to racist outcomes. Like, for example, the policy we have here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, which causes teachers of color to be historically the last ones hired, yet the first fired, even though they are wholly underrepresented within our public education system, despite a growing number of students of color. This policy of last hired, first fired is making for naught any meaningful diversity efforts, thus denying the growth of teachers of color who intuitively have the cultural competencies to make a difference in the success of students of color. That practice is systemically racist and leads to a racist outcome and needs to change now. Because of issues like these and many others, I feel like marching the streets every day on behalf of our young people, those who have been the most marginalized and oppressed in society, those who are seen within education system as defective products that are either felt sorry for or in need of fixing, instead of someone taking the time to learn about each of them on a deep level, to find and nurture that peculiar bent of genius that each possess. That is most often found when education is made to amuse and intrigue, as it does in so many privileged schools. I want to march against the education system that chooses to ignore the pain our babies and young people bring with them to school each day, from broken communities that were once vibrant until they were destroyed by bulldozers for new highways, made impotent by planned and systemic economic disenfranchisement practices, leading to a lack of affordable housing, homelessness, gentrification, and looked upon with derision and scorn by allowing illegal drugs and guns, which then turn their communities from honored and safe places to militarized police-occupied territories. We can no longer ignore that pain or why it exists. We must also stop ignoring the strong and beautiful families our learners come from, the struggles that they have endured, the resilient and resourceful people who make up their communities along with their ancestral knowledge. All should be welcomed at the school door. All should have a seat at the table. School is our place as teachers and education leaders. It is their place too as learners, their families, and community. That collectively is our power. Yes, as education and other sector leaders who support our work, I commend you for all that you do. And as leaders, we must confront the issue of power each day, which speaks directly to the times that we are in. It is clear that the present day fight for power is posing truly existential questions as to what is at stake. It is with that I conclude with a return to an acknowledgement of the times that we are in and what I believe it means. You see, there was a powerful moment in one of Dr. King's speeches when he was describing all that was happening at that historic time in the late 1960s. And he said with great rectitude, quote, "One thing we must see today is that these are revolutionary times," unquote. My fellow RAPSA members and friends, either you see it or you refuse to look, but these too are revolutionary times. Now, I don't believe in violence or destruction or that all revolutions have to be violent. But when we talk about place and power as a part of an aspirational quest for people and community power, and yes, teacher power, educator power, we must be prepared to fight. Fight as Dr. King, John Lewis, Rosa Parks, and my students fought, raising their voices in the streets while strategizing on the sides. For as the renowned abolitionist Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. So when I state that we are in revolutionary times, yes, I do mean to fight by fighting the powers that be and anyone who stands in the way of our young people's rightful place within our educational system, in the way of their hopes and dreams. Whether that fight is against an old and entrenched educational bureaucracy determined to sustain a broken system that was never designed for the ultimate liberation and success of the young people I serve, or if it's fighting an overall political system that seeks to disenfranchise them and their communities from their civil, economic, and especially now their vote. So RAPSA leaders and friends, if we mean what we say that we are fighting on behalf of the millions of at-promise students across America, let's borrow that fight, courage, passion, and purpose of the young people we have seen in the streets fighting for justice. Let's fight for the often marginalized people who dwell within their communities and pledge to fight just as hard and powerfully for them. What are we ultimately fighting for? We're fighting for the dignity of every young person who walks through our doors or clicks on our Zoom link, the families they come from, the community and heritage they represent with all its traditions and customs that have greatly contributed to our society and has been a source to their survival and resilience. We are, in a very real sense, fighting for our relevancy. For if we continue to ignore our people and the places they come from, we will no longer matter to them at all. Yet I am hopeful. I believe we have that fight in us. We as an organization with the profound mission we have for so many years will continue to fight for equity and racial and social justice for all of our young people, their families and community. We will continue to do this with the same steadiness of the mighty Mississippi. We as RAPSA will just continue to roll along, serving the over 6 million at-promise students in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for your words of wisdom and encouragement. I really appreciate everything that you had to say, and I want to encourage folks to enjoy the rest of the conference and to be intentional about where we're going and what educational leadership means. Thank you all.
Thank you.